on! Because you hit every other damn thing out there, I want you to be perfect!
When I'm driving, I got a guy on the radio who talks to me. It's him. He talks to me.
Well, I wanna be a race car driver. Pretty girls eating from my hand, yeah. Wanna live a life of fun and danger. No sweater working for the man, alright.
Good evening, race fans. Welcome to the Hoobazoo Radio Network, and welcome to Drafting the Circuits. My name is Frank Santoroski. I'll be your host for the next hour as we talk about this week in racing. Joining me tonight, I have Richard Youden and Luis Torres. Guys, what's up?
How's it going?
It's going.
It's going. All right, you guys sound really enthusiastic because we've got a lot to talk about. So NASCAR, we had the Martinsville was a cutoff race, and I thought that was the perfect choice for the cutoff race. We had some definite drama in there. At the end of the day, it was Chase Elliott winning the race, guaranteeing his spot in there. The other three in the Championship 4 will be Joey Logano, who's got in there on a basis of a win. And on points, we've got Denny Hamlin and Brad Keselowski making up the 4. On the outside looking in, we have the most dominant driver of the year, Kevin Harvick, who somewhat sealed his own fate. If you think about it, he has been a little bit non-stellar these last 2 races and got himself in a position where he was behind. And at the end of the race, tried to make up a spot in the last corner, tried to push Kyle Busch out of the way, and ended up spinning his own car and losing it all just right then and there. So, Luis, Richard, let's dig into this, how that went down, some of Harvick's comments, and just our thoughts in general on the 4 guys in and the 4 guys out.
First and foremost, I feel like rewarding Harvick an automatic bid to the championship 4 just because he won the regular season championship is ridiculous. You don't see that in any other sport. Again, NASCAR has its own different thing with the playoffs, but when it comes to the playoffs, you have to deliver. In other forms of sports, if you don't deliver when it matters most, you don't make it. Tampa Bay last year, they won the President's Cup, got bounced in the first round. New England Patriots, they went undefeated, lost the Super Bowl against the Giants. And also you have the Seattle Mariners, 116 wins, didn't even make the World Series, and have not made the playoffs since then. The longest playoff drought in sport.
Right. So we've got to
quickly to step in. It is seeded though. It is seeded. So they do, in theory, if you win the regular season, you should get an easier passage through to the to the Super Bowl, the World Series, or whatever it may be. Now I know in the Cup Series they do give points.
15.
But I mean, one bad race or 2 bad races, and that banker you've built up over 20 odd races has disappeared. In a big wreck at Talladega or something.
Yeah, certainly they do try to protect those guys with by seeding them, and then there's also the stage win points that collect up there. If you recall, a couple of years ago, Truex had accumulated so many stage win points that he was very safe in every round. Well, he did continue to win races. He had a nice cushion in the points there, but I mean, realistically, NASCAR wanted a playoff system that mirrored stick and ball sports. And we all knew that this sort of thing could happen, and now it has. And it happens, to your point, Luis, all the time in regular stick and ball sports. And this is what we wanted. This is what we've got.
Yeah, we got what NASCAR wanted us to get, that entertainment value, which is something that Kevin Harvick said in the post-race conference. They've leaned towards the entertainment. And what he also said on the TV that Richard will explain more is that winning championships these days don't hold much quality compared to the days of Earnhardt, Petty, Gordon, Yarborough, and Pearson.
Is that what Harvick said? I thought his comments were kind of slanted the other way. Richard, I'll let you fill us in.
I mean, directly post-race, obviously these comments are made in the heat of the moment, but when Kevin Harvick was asked about being eliminated, he made comments, and I'm paraphrasing here. These championships are hard to win. It's not like they hand them out like they used to with Petty and Earnhardt. So I think the point he was trying to make is that maybe I think what he's probably getting at there is the depth of the field is a lot greater now than it was maybe in previous generations when when drivers won multiple championships. You're probably not going to see that as much these days because of as I say, the strength of the field and the strength of the big teams around and the requirements, so that the necessity to have a competitive team just rather than just a good driver.
I tend to agree somewhat on the Richard Petty thing, because there was a time when Petty and his team were just head and shoulders above the rest. But I want to say, Dale Sr. drove in a very competitive era. You had a lot of really good guys out there, right, running at the same time with him, and a lot of really good teams. You had your Mark Martins, your Rusty Wallaces, your Davey Allisons, Terry Labonte's, guys like that who gave him a good run for his money. Ricky Rudd, another fine driver of that era. So I don't think that Earnhardt was handed anything. Just saying.
No, but I just think these days with the differential between the car and driver, and it's similar in Formula One. You look back in the good old days in Formula One in the 1980s. You look at the qualifying performances, and there'd be 8 seconds between first and 22nd or 20th or whatever. Now there's 2 seconds, and I don't know, my interest in NASCAR doesn't go back far enough, but you look at, I think from some of the stuff I've read, back in the 80s and 90s when Earnhardt was winning, there was a pretty big divergence across the field. He would be like 2 or 3 laps down in a race and still win it, when you could never do that today in Cup racing.
And I think with the competition back then, you had anybody that could have one great event without all the shenanigans that happen, especially because you have like a backmarker underfunded team that will do really, really good in qualifying frequently. Nowadays, it's very clear set in stone who are the strong ones, who are the middle, who are on the bottom.
Yeah.
The Formula One, for sure, these days and age, is really, really difficult. The gap is much tighter, whereas even almost 20 years ago, you had Ferrari, like, between Ferrari and Arrows or Minardi, 5 to 7 seconds.
Yeah.
And they were not allowed to run because of the 107% rule.
Yep.
These days,
Yeah.
it's
So,
not
but
let's
let's get off the subject of old Formula One and just try to get back on the task at hand here. But the one thing I wanted to dive into a little bit, and we can talk a little more about Harvick in a bit, is Denny Hamlin, and then there's this little bit of controversy over the fact that his teammate Eric Jones was told on the radio, "Don't pass your teammate," and somehow folks have equated that to manipulating the outcome of the championship. Now, if you say maintain your position, right? Don't pass your teammate. That's one thing. It's not as if they told him move aside and let Denny pass you. It's not as if they said do a Rubens Barrichello and give Michael the win. Here we go, old Formula One again. So, I just can't. It just kind of just blew my mind how upset some folks were about that, and they said there's a rule. There's a rule that a driver has to give his 100% effort all the time, and I looked that up, and yes, that is a rule. But how do you
police that one?
Yeah, how do you quantify that? You could, Jones could easily say, it's a risk making a pass at Martinsville. It's a very narrow track. I didn't want to. I wanted to preserve the car. It certainly. They asked, "Don't pass your teammate." I won't pass my teammate. Like I say, it's not as if they said, "Move over, let Denny go."
Yeah, it's ridiculous. Totally blown out of all proportion. At the end of the day, it's a team sport. There's, Joe Gibbs Racing. They have a job to win a championship, and I have zero problem with that whatsoever. And I don't think Harvick or any other team would if the boot was on the other foot, they'd do exactly the same thing. I think it's people looking to find an issue and create an issue that isn't there. I think it's ridiculous. If they don't understand team sports, people that come up with that those stupid notions, I'm sorry, that's just ridiculous.
Likewise, it's ridiculous within itself. It's like, there's sometimes you want to find that juicy radio audio. I know I've found a couple in the past, but that one, don't pass. Like, this is nothing new. It's common, it's common in racing. Look at restrictor plate racing back a decade ago. With manufacturers, they wouldn't let Trevor Bayne work with Jeff Gordon. I know that's different, but they don't want to work with other certain people. And now we're seeing as their teammates. Whatever it may be, this is nothing new. Manufacturers, teammates, or alliances.
I would be more disappointed. I mean, at the end of the day, to my mind, the kid should know not to do that. Eric Jones should know not to try and pass his teammate. I mean,
yeah, especially in the the championship decider.
I know he's out
decides
there
who's
at the end
right.
of the season as well. That
Every-
has something to do with it, but
Jones has been labeled pretty much the lame duck of JGR since he's going to RPM next year.
Exactly.
And also Hamlin was throwing a fit over Jones driving him and all of that. It's like, not Hamlin, it was Truex, whoever. They're probably the same when it comes to Jones these days. Like, Jones is driving to win a race. You have to run him like he is the leader. It's like, geez, some people complaining about the littlest things kind of gets ridiculous, but not more ridiculous than what people are trying to make a big fuss over this whole thing with Jones and Hamlin.
Right. So let's talk about the guys that are out, which the two notable ones are Martin Truex and Kevin Harvick, who are arguably two of the best drivers in the series and two of the guys who have been championship contenders for at least the last 4 or 5 years. Both these guys have, they've been in the Final Four the last couple of years. They've each won a championship. It's odd to have those two top names out at this juncture, but then again, neither one of them was really hot in this last phase of the playoffs.
Nope, absolutely not. And to my knowledge, I think this is the first time since the playoffs were implemented, the current that we have in 2014, since 2014, that we see no Harvick or Truex. But we do see, we'll mention a little bit later, Team Penske, both of their key components for the first time. It is a little bit surprising, but what did Truex did in my eye was just the points penalty from Texas during pre-race. And when it comes to Harvick, I felt like ever since he got collected in that big wreck at Talladega with Kyle Busch, he's been off the rails where he's just all of a sudden not had the strongest runs. And Texas really did him in for good at a track that, in a race that he's won the past couple years in a row. So that didn't help him, and we're in that position where,
so let's talk about the guys.
For a reason.
So let's talk about the guys that are in. Now, Chase Elliott, the kid is hot right now. No doubt about that. I mean, he was very good at Martinsville. He's been very good at nearly every track. This championship, to me, now he will start from the pole position. Since we don't do qualifying anymore, he will be starting from the first position based on the blind draw. So that bodes well for him that he can grab the lead right off the bat. But this is a winner-take-all race. We don't have to worry about any stage wins. Don't have to worry about any points. We just have to worry about finishing ahead of three other guys who are also hungry to win that. So, Louise, where do you rank Chase there in his bid to win his first championship?
He finally got out of the round of 8. That has been the big question mark for Chase Elliott for his entire career. Can he make it out of the round of 8? Because there are usually a lot of things that has taken him out. It almost did during the race when it comes to that Jackman who jumped in the pit box by accident and had to go back to avoid penalty. Initially, they were penalizing him, but then they reversed the call because the rule book says you can reposition yourself without any penalty. It cost him some pit times, and he dodged a big bullet in that one. He also had the crew had a very slow stop, which I think it was the final stop or the second to last. But Elliott just had a faster car, and he showed that he's determined. But because of the aforementioned pit mistakes, I don't see him winning the championship because they have to be perfect. Alex Gustafson and that entire team has to be absolutely flawless if they're going to have a shot of winning the championship. I'm not knocking Elliott's driving ability because he can get the job done. It's just it boils down to that pit crew. And you look back at last year, pit road was the deciding factor of Kyle Busch winning the championship last year, and not Denny Hamlin or Martin Truex. And I feel like that history might repeat itself. So I'm not too confident on Elliott's crew as far as this championship. That's why I cannot say he will win it. He'll come close, but ultimately comes down to pit stops in Elliott's camp.
All right, so now I want to talk about another guy that's in it. That would be Brad Keselowski, 4 wins on the year. He's not necessarily had any streaks where he's been really hot. This year, even at Martinsville, he was in the mix, but never really contending for the win. But I've got to look at Phoenix and got to look at how that's kind of patterned a bit similar to Richmond. And then I've got to look at the way Keselowski dominated at Richmond, and he's bringing that same chassis that he ran at Richmond there to Phoenix. And I got to say, Keselowski, he's not been in the championship since we've had this format, I believe. I don't believe he's been in the past round of 8 since we've had this format.
He was in 17.
Was he? Okay.
That was, I think, the only time he's ever made it in a championship was in 2017 when Truex won it.
Yeah, but I got to say, my kind of thoughts are kind of leaning towards Keselowski right now, and as far as they winning the whole thing.
Yeah.
Now, Richard, go ahead. I want to involve Richard and let him pick a guy to talk about. You got your choice of the other two.
Ooh. Yeah. Cool boy. Yes. I mean, I think you got Logano and Denny Hamlin sat there, and without Kevin Harvick there, you've got to look on performance over the course of the year. You've got to look at Denny Hamlin, but the guy hasn't been stellar towards the back end of the season. He's obviously clinched his playoff berth. Then I don't know when his last win was, but I don't think he's won a race in the playoffs. He's been pretty. He's just like been in survival mode, and I wonder if that's going to get it done. Going into Phoenix, they may have just been, working on, certain Phoenix characteristics, through the playoffs. But the tracks are so diverse, I don't think that would be the case. But
so I partially wonder if he is been distracted with all of his plans for next year. Starting the new team. I'm sure that's taken a lot of time and a lot of effort and and a lot of mental energy on his part as well. I just wonder if that somehow has him distracted from the task at hand here.
Oh, it wouldn't surprise me at all. I think that there's obviously not just the sort of mental effort involved in it, because that's obviously he's great, but also the physical effort in doing lots of interviews and sort of multitasking. Driving one of these cars is hard enough as it is. To go out and sort of spread yourself as thinly as he is will take some doing. Now I don't know. You guys will know better than I will, but obviously when Dale Earnhardt set up DEI, how did that affect his performances? I'm not putting Denny Hamlin in the same category, but it's a similar scenario where you're creating a team and racing for somebody else at the same time.
It seems to me Earnhardt kept winning races. I don't really remember him.
If he won any championships, did he?
I want to say I don't think he was. That was towards the later years of his career, where he wasn't quite as hot as he was. You had guys in there, Jeff Gordon for sure, right, starting to dominate the sport there. But I don't know if it took a lot of focus off Dale, or if he was just, everyone kind of gets to that phase in their career, gets to that age. He was over 40, where the wins become a little fewer and farther between. Not that he was uncompetitive, not that he was anything to the point of like a Richard Petty at the end of his career, where he just really struggled. But he wasn't the dominant guy week in and week out. And whether or not running the team on the side was a factor is something we'll really never know, because we can't ask him.
It'd be interesting to see where he goes on a Monday after a race. Does he go to JGR, or does he go to the 2311 shop?
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see how that plays out for next year.
But going for this weekend, obviously, this is probably the best chance that he's ever had. So, and I hope he does win it, because I think it was between him and between Hamlin and Harvick as to who deserve. I hate using the word deserve, because Harvick arguably didn't deserve to win the championship because he didn't make it to the playoff finals, even though his performance over the course of the season has probably been the most dominant. I would, in personal preference, I think Hamlin to win would be great for him. He's probably, to my mind, the best driver out there who hasn't won a championship yet.
So certainly the best of the older guys. Yeah, we could argue that some of these young guys are great. But as far as just overall, experience and the depth of wins in his career, he's won most of the majors. He's won Daytona a couple times. You know, he's won at the Brickyard, so he's very accomplished. He's certainly the most accomplished driver to have not won a championship
I mean,
yet.
if he
And
wins
this
a
would
championship,
really put a feather in his cap.
Yeah, I mean, if he wins the championship, nobody would look back in 20 years' time and go, "Oh, gee, we didn't deserve to win that, did he?" You know.
No. I mean, he's already got a Hall of Fame career. This would just really put the icing on the cake for it.
Yeah. So I think from a personal standpoint, I hope he wins it. From a performance standpoint, contrary to what Louis said there, I would go with Chase Elliott actually. I think with the might of the Hendrick, organisation behind them, I think I know Hendrick maybe been not where they want to be the last few years, but I think an organisation like that, when they have a sniff at a championship and an opportunity like this, I think they tend to grasp it with both hands. So it wouldn't surprise me if Chase didn't take the title this weekend.
Oh yeah, certainly that team knows how to win championships. Yeah, they've got a couple of trophies on the shelf there at the shop. So let's talk about Joey Logano then. Joey Logano, a former champion from a couple of years back. He was a dark horse then, and pulled it out. And I don't know that I would call him a dark horse out of these four. Now if Truex and Harvick were still in there, you might consider Joey Logano a dark horse, but I think he's got to rank as one of the favorites here because he is he's been known to deliver when the pressure's on. Now Luis, what are your thoughts on Logano?
That's my pick for the championship, and he's just, here's the thing, it's starting to look like 2018 again when Logano last won it, where the biggest fear was to have Logano deep in the championship and now in this title chase. That is a nightmare for the rest of the competition, and when that happens, he's very hard to beat. He does have the advantage of having that win last time around in Phoenix, before the pandemic happened. I know he's only won one race since the pandemic, but who's to say he doesn't win again? And the only thing that will stop. The funny thing about Phoenix is that all these guys that are in the championship four could win it. There's no true one-sided champion. As much as Hamlin has been the strongest out of the four guys, Hamlin has not had necessarily the strongest of runs as of late. Looks can be deceiving, as Hamlin alluded a couple of times during these calls. And with Logano, I don't know. I don't see how he does not win the championship. I think he's just clicked at the right time. Sometimes when you click at the right time, you'll get rewarded heavily. And that's typically how it goes down in these playoffs. The ones who are.
And then again, they don't have to win this race either. They just have to finish ahead of three other guys. Yeah, you could have let Harvick and Kyle Busch fight it out for the win, and just keep yourself out of trouble, keep your nose clean, and keep those other three guys behind you. Of course, that's not how it's going to play out. That each of them will be going for the win, because that's the best way to seal your fate, is to win the darn thing. And I want to say, am I correct that each year the champion has won the final race? I can't think of a.
Yep, and for Cup, every champion won the finale. I think only in trucks that's not been the case. On a couple or one or two occasions, maybe Xfinity, but Cup for sure, the champion won the finale every single time.
All right, so yeah, I want to say the Cup Series has been every single time. So it's been a satisfying finale from that point of view, that the guy that won the race is the champion. For the fan watching, you say, yep, that's right, that guy won the race, he deserves this thing. Of course, we do.
Larson fans, how many times he was strong and Homestead could not win it, or even Jeff Gordon 2014, he had a hell of a car, but for whatever reason they decided to pit him.
Yeah, but of course I do always like to throw out the scenario that you could have those four guys, since they starting them all together, that they could all crash into one another on the opening lap, and whoever grinds to a halt closest to the finish line on lap one with the damaged car will win a championship, and then you will have to run the rest of the race still. So I mean, it could happen. It's highly unlikely, but
they're going to do whatever it takes.
Hey, but think of the fact we're starting. With the no qualifying format, we're starting all four of those guys together. So it'll be fun to watch, that's for sure. So we've got championships up for grabs in the trucks and Xfinities as well.
Mhm.
Louise, if we don't have Seth here, who's our usual reporter on the junior series, so let's talk about Xfinity. I know the four guys in are Cindric's in there,
Mhm.
and Tyler Reddick. No,
No, Reddick's
what-
in Cup now.
no. What's his name? See, I don't watch
Chase
Xfinity that much.
Chase Briscoe, Justin
Chase
Haley,
Briscoe,
and
that's the
Justin
guy, yeah.
Allgaier. Yeah, so the championship for Xfinity are Chase Briscoe, Austin Cindric, a.k.a. the guy who is one step closer to Indy 500, Justin
our
Haley,
little
and
joke.
Justin Allgaier.
So you gotta
so-
if you look at this thing, you gotta really like Chase Briscoe's chances. And the guy is he's what 9 this year.
Yeah, he's won 9 races this year. He's trying to join an even elite club of winner of the 10-win club, which Harvick is also trying to join as well, because the 10-win club hasn't happened in Cup since Johnson in 07 on the Xfinity, and I believe it's been since Kyle Busch almost a decade ago. Somebody won at least 10 Xfinity races in a single year. But as for sure, I feel like it's going to come down to the two Fords of Cindric and Briscoe. Don't cut out the two Justins either. I think that one will certainly be an absolute nail biter to the absolute bitter end. Because you have Justin Allgaier, who has historically been excellent in Phoenix. He won last November. Justin Haley was the highest finisher of the 4 guys in this title quest in March. So, who's to say not either one of those guys could win this? I think all 4 are capable. Haley's more of the dark horse contender out of the 3. Allgaier,
Yeah, but Haley also has this unique ability to just pull a rabbit out of a hat. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and
He
that's
just,
why
I mean,
said
just
all-
out of nowhere. I mean, the guy is a Cup winner. You know,
Yeah.
so you can't count him out ever.
No, it cannot. Who knows if like at Rochette, there's that wild card. Rochette Chastain, what would he be? What would he do? Would he play a role into this whole thing? Because he's probably not trying to get that first win of the season, because he hasn't won all year. 2, if he's not in a position to win, but Justin Haley is, will he do whatever it takes to prevent the other guys from going? Because he is an aggressive driver, and I feel like do not sleep on Ross on playing a role in this title quest at all. Do not.
That'll
Even
certainly
though
be
he's
something
not in
to
the
look out for. Yeah. Richard, who do you like in this Xfinity battle? I know you've actually worked in the Xfinity side of the sport for a while, and you're familiar with some of these guys.
Yeah, I mean, I think you can't look past Cindric, can you, really? I think that he'd be my favourite. From what I've seen of him this year, I think he's been very impressive, and he's building up to what he's got in front of him over the next few years. And yeah, I think he'd be who I'd put my 50 cents on to win.
Yeah, that'd be pretty neat for Roger Penske to win both championships too. You know, if Joey or Brad were to win the Cup thing, and then Austin Cindric, it'd be since they got shut out at the Indy 500, and they had to cede the championship to Dixon in the IndyCar series, maybe he can have a bang up year in NASCAR, the series he didn't buy.
Yeah, he's got he's got one more supercar title, and also I believe IMSA. I haven't checked on the DPI category.
I want to say Castro Neves won this past weekend. Castro Neves and Taylor, so they're right there in contention for that IMSA title as well.
Yeah, which is the 12-hour Sebring, I believe, unless that's not been updated.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure. We don't have our sports car guy on here to fill us in. So, but anyway,
Yeah.
so truck series.
In the truck series, we have 3 GMS racing drivers and 1 ThorSport. The ThorSport guy being Grant Enfinger, who was last year's regular season champion. He won last Friday in Martinsville to punch his ticket to the championship and he was in a must-win situation because that race was mostly Sheldon Creed dominating until a late race battle where saw Creed spinning, eliminated from the fight. Creed is one of the other championship contenders along with Brett Moffitt and Zane Smith. For Zane Smith, he's locked up Rookie of the Year by virtue of making it to the championship because obviously the other rookie, Christian Eckes, didn't make it past the next round. He got bounced. Moffitt got in because of his win at Kansas, and Sheldon Creed did it by winning Texas. On that one, it could. It's the funny thing is, all three series, there's no true weak link. Well, to some people will say Keselowski's the weakest link or Justin Haley's the weakest link. For the Truck Series, all four of them have the capability. It's just a matter of how things unfold. And I feel like Grant Enfinger, he has the 4 wins. He did what he had to do in a must win. But for him to win this championship, he's going to have to hope things fall into place where he is the truck to beat. Because they have a lot at stake. Because in my recent piece that I talked about, Sourceport has never won the Owners' Championship because of Kyle Busch. Because in the Truck Series, you usually have Kyle Busch Motorsports or some other part-time truck that shares a roster of drivers in it that kicks the other one out. This time around, all 4 in the championship are fighting for the owners. So there's a lot on the line for GMS and Thorsport to get in their first owner's title. But of course, the big talk is that championship. Moffitt has been quick. He finally starting to click things. Creed just has the tendency of having strong trucks, but at times he finish the job. He has on a couple occasions, but there have been times in key moments that Creed cannot seal the deal, and that worries me, and that's why I don't see him winning the championship. Zane Smith is a bit of a stretch, so I feel like this could be Moffitt's or Enfinger's title. That's my side of the ordeal. And if Moffitt wins, it'll be one heck of a tribute for Jimmy Johnson, because he'll be driving that Johnson tribute scheme from, I believe, his first championship in 2006. So the cards could favor Moffitt, but I feel like Enfinger would be more of a sentimental due to the fact that Jeff Hensley, his crew chief, has never won the Truck Series title. He's been around in the sport for a real long time. In fact, he was the championship winning crew chief with Chuck Bound in the Busch Grand National days. Could have won 2007 with Mike Skinner, but Mike Skinner had that cut tire and ultimately lost the championship in the final race of the year in 2007. So it'll be neat to see the 98 team get it done this Friday.
Yeah, it's a big weekend for NASCAR, the finale of the season. And now you mentioned Jimmy Johnson, and so he will be running his last race in the 48 car, the 48 Cup car, that is. It'll be his last race as a full-time NASCAR Cup driver. I mean, he's hinted a little bit that he may, you may see him here and there on a one-off back in NASCAR. Nothing is over till it's over, especially when you're still driving. But he will debut as an Indycar driver in March when the season opens at the streets of St. Pete. And he spent this past weekend at Barber Motorsports Park, along with several other cars, testing the car, and he's just made some neat comments on Twitter and stuff. How he's just really he's shaving off seconds at a time as he's getting more and more used to the car. Now the thing I found funny is that his driver's coach is Dario Franchitti, and Barber has not been one of Dario's best tracks, just putting that out there. And even Dario said, "Yeah, I'm glad I'm there to help you because I've pretty much crashed in every corner there." So, but it sounds like Jimmy is really enjoying himself and fitting in well with the other guys there in the crew there. Dixon has some nice things to say about Johnson. Again, Franchitti has some nice things to say about Johnson. And then they just feel like the guy's coming in a good frame of mind with a good work ethic. Despite the fact that some think he's too old or too old to be changing gears after running around in circles so much. So it'll be interesting to see how all that plays out and how competitive he can really be. Again, his times were pretty far off from the established guys there, but every time he went out, he was better. So now, Richard, what are your thoughts on this old dude hopping into IndyCar? You think he's gonna be the real deal next year, or he's gonna be mid pack, or he's gonna embarrass himself?
I think he'd be mid pack. I don't think somebody with Jimmy Johnson's name, should we say, it would put himself in a position where he's going to make himself look silly. It's just not worth it. And again, his work ethic is that you don't, win as many cup championships as he has without having, the world one, an outstanding work ethic. And we all know from his sort of work outside of racing, his fitness work, his triathlons, his marathons, those sort of things. He's his fitness levels are as high as anybody's in motorsport. So I think he's going to get out there, and I think I don't think he's going to win races or anything like that, but he's going to have fun. He's going to battle with guys around him. He's going to go wheel to wheel. He's going to realize the suspension breaks far easier when you don't have a fender around them. And he's going to have fun, and I think it's going to be great for the sport. It'll attract new people in. It'll, give the sport a bit of buzz, and I think it's exactly what it needs.
Yeah, and again, like we had mentioned last week as well, he's bringing a big money sponsor into the sport, in Carvana, who's not had any experience in sponsoring auto racing, but they are a growing company, and they get bigger and bigger, and they spend a lot of money on advertising. I'm just kind of maybe looking forward to seeing some Carvana ads, featuring Jimmy running around in an Indycar. Be fun to watch.
Yep.
So. Also testing, we had guys test at the Speedway as well. The Indianapolis Motor Speedway, they were testing last week, testing some different aero bits to try to improve the passing. If you recall, in years like, the pre-aero kit era, 2012, 2013, and even into the manufacturer aero kit version, we had a lot of passes, and it was relatively easy to pass. And there were times when you didn't want to lead, so you kept swapping that thing back and forth. But then once we came out with the universal kit in 2018, the passing has been a little more difficult. A lot more dirty air behind the car. So they're trying a couple of different aero bits on the cars. Specifically, I noticed a lot of stuff around the right behind the front tires there. Those the winglets on the bottom tray. They had a couple of different configurations there they were trying out. So, and now they're crunching numbers and looking at data. So we'll have to see how all that works out. But genuinely positive things being heard. Everybody is like, right back to work. The season just ended. But, right back to work. Sato was out there testing. Dixon's been out there testing. Scott McLaughlin has got test time in. We had Felix Lacosta from the Formula E Series test at Barber in the Rahal car. Now, my understanding is that's not going to lead to a ride in 2021. It was merely a test because Lacosta is contracted for Formula E next year to defend his title. But that season wraps up in August, so there's no saying that he may not appear in a third car somewhere towards the end of next season. If there's a car available and some sponsorship money to put him in one. But he was his comments were he was genuinely impressed with the Indycar and said he would love to do it some more. So now Louise, you take a look at any of these test times and whatnot, or any of the comments, anything you'd like to add before we start talking about Formula One?
I think that was the only thing I was going to mention about the cost having a stellar time period. But as somebody mentioned from the IndyCar realm, that sometimes those times can be deceiving, but it's just a matter of due to the fact that just because it is a test. Sometimes you'll see some potential. Sometimes you need a little bit more to fully understand and fully grasp how they are, because it's just one track. But for me, right now, I'm actually very impressed with what I noticed on the Coast of Speed and that Rahal car. And would I like to see him run IndyCar? For sure. I welcome anyone that is interested to run IndyCar to give it a go and see how they pan out.
Yeah, if you look at next season, it's shaping up to be big. Because you figure you've got McLaughlin coming in, who is the reigning Supercar champion. He's not widely known in the States, but that's over in Australia. They like the V8 Supercars, and that's a great series. And the guys that come out of that are genuine, generally quite talented. And I know Will Powers looking forward to having another Aussie there on his team, even though he's technically a Kiwi. But I think with Will Powers, after you're from New Zealand, you might as well be from Australia. So Just got to cross the street. Yeah, I think Will meant it as a bit of a joke. I remember early on in my journalistic career when Scott Dixon was a mere rookie. I was writing an article about Scott Dixon, and I had mentioned that he was an Aussie, and I was blasted by some New Zealanders who, they were, kind about it in their own little New Zealand kind of way. There's like, it's like, what you say there, man, you're wrong. He's a Kiwi, mate, something like that. So I kind of learned that lesson early.
Please don't ever do that again.
Don't do a New Zealand accent ever again.
No,
okay.
Please.
Okay. So all I know is from watching Crocodile Dundee movies. That's not a knife. It's a knife. All right, so let's talk about Formula One. We had a race at Imola. Long anticipated. Last time we raced at Imola was 2006. Most of the guys that are in the race now were between 7 and 9 years old, other than Kimi, who was actually placed 5th in the race. He's been in the series long enough. But yeah, so a brand new track for a lot of the guys out there. And then we had, of course, Lewis taking another win. Danny Rick on the podium, though. That's another podium for Renault.
Yeah.
So, Richard, let's talk about this Imola race a bit, because I thought it was quite entertaining.
It was great to be back at the old Imola circuit. Obviously one that had a tainted memory, if you like. Nobody can ever talk of Imola or even think about that race without the tragic weekend back in 1994. But it was great to be back. Obviously, a lot of circuit changes since '94, but also since 2006 when we were last there. And it was just great to see the cars on. Again, I use this phrase, a lot when we talk about these old nostalgic circuits, a proper racetrack. There were still issues with track limits, which I think they need to address. But again, the cars are so different now to what they were 14 years ago when they were last raced there. So I think if it was to become a permanent fixture on the calendar, which I doubt it will be, it would need some real upgrades in some of the corner complexes to make it more drivable from that extent, so they're not slinging it around off the curbs like they were. But it was another race that sort of fell into Lewis Hamilton's lap, really. And unfortunately for Valtteri Bottas, he sort of fell victim to covering the Red Bull strategy, as we've seen all too often this season. In all fairness, Red Bull only really have one driver in the race, who can challenge for the win in Max Verstappen there. And so when Max reacts, the easy thing for Mercedes to do is just pit one of their drivers and then cover that tactic. And in this race just gone again, that was Valtteri Bottas that was pulled into the pits to cover him, and that just played into Lewis Hamilton's hands all too well. So that really, really cost Valtteri the race. And then Max had a tyre failure with, 15 laps to go or so, and that pitched him out of the race, which is unfortunate because Max was having a good race there. He'd got up to P2 and actually passed Valtteri after Valtteri had picked up some debris from Sebastian Vettel's car on lap 2, coming out the Torres chicane, hairpin there. So Valtteri was always on the back foot, and then when they that pit stop strategy really took the race away from Valtteri and handed it to Lewis. And Verstappen got past it. Verstappen's P2, not really in a position to catch Hamilton, but his tyre it's just failed, probably running over some debris, carbon fibre shard, goes through the sidewall or something, and the tyre's gone instantaneously. And that's a concertina that the whole field gave everybody a chance to pit. I think Perez was probably in line for a P3 there, but he pitted, and that, as you say, vaulted Daniel Ricciardo up into third place, and he held that off and got a second podium. So whether Cyril there at Renault will need 2 tattoos to celebrate this season, I don't know, but it'd be good fun if it did.
It makes you wonder if
everybody else would be good.
it makes you wonder if Ricciardo's making the wrong move leaving Renault and going to McLaren. Not that McLaren is putting together a good car, and McLaren is certainly lined up for Mercedes power next year.
Yeah. It's an interesting question, isn't it? Yeah, I mean,
because Renault has improved so much this year.
Oh, for sure. And Daniel Ricciardo is probably a large part of the responsibility for that. He's very, very capable of growing and developing a team. I think he's done a good job there. But I think probably if you were given an option for Renault or McLaren, I think in the grand scheme, I think McLaren is probably the better bet. Because what's Danny now? He's 30, 31 maybe. So he's got another 3 or 4 years at the top of the game. Who are you going to put money on McLaren reacting to what will now be 2022 regulations better than Renault? That's basically what you're throwing your hat in the ring at. You're saying,
absolutely,
big regulation changes coming in. I think that McLaren will be better at reacting to it. No,
Well, yeah, there's some rumors here and there that folks at Renault corporate are not entirely thrilled with the amount of money they're putting into the Formula One program, and which gives you the is this still going to be around in a few years, right? McLaren has a. There's always that, yeah. There's always the bean counters up at the home office are saying, "What are we spending this money for?"
I think part of the problem there is that Renault and the Renault Group, as it is, I mean, it's not just the Renault brand; it's a multiple-faceted organisation. I think they have quite a bit of French government financial input, so I think there's a little bit of that. Do we really want to be? But saying that, Fiat obviously are a large input into Ferrari, and they're owned by the Italian government as well. So it's not always as clear cut as that. But yeah, I'm sure that when Daniel was going into the negotiations with both McLaren and Renault for going beyond 2020, McLaren just didn't turn around to him and say, "Oh, we're going to make a great car in 2022. Oh, it's going to be the best car ever. Oh, okay, I'll come and drive for you." I'm sure he's seen some numbers. I'm sure he's seen some simulations, some modelling, some projections, and Daniel is outside the Max and Lewis category. He is as good as anybody, and as anybody would pick him up to be a driver for them. So he certainly would command that respect from any team. So it'll, I think he's probably. I'd love to see Renault do well. I'd love to see Alonso do well, but I think probably McLaren will edge that one.
Yeah, even if you look at just over the history of both of those organizations there, I mean, McLaren has constantly been in the game. Yes, they've been down a little bit the last couple of years, but given their overall history, they've managed to kind of stay in the mix, even as recent, as the 2008, 2009. Well, I guess that's not that recent anymore, is it?
Yeah.
but I mean, as a factory team, Renault has not been super competitive since the turbo era. No. since the 90s. I mean, they've been successful as an engine manufacturer in some other, with their engine in some other folks' car, but as a factory team.
2005, 2006 with Alonso, they were technically Renault.
Yes, they were technically Renault, yeah.
As well,
but they were run out. They weren't run out of France. They were run out of Benetton, which is where they currently are. So it's always
right. Yeah, it was the remnants of the Benetton team. Right?
Benetton team. Yeah.
Or if I recall, weren't they Italian based at one point or throughout?
No, I don't think so.
I don't know why.
Benetton may have been. I'm not sure because I know the
that's
family
what I'm referring.
Originally Italian.
Yeah, that's referring to Benetton, where I believe Italia or that became British. Either or, they've had some interesting time periods where they were one country, then the next, depending on who was owning and running the team. But to go to
at the end of the day, Benetton is a clothing company.
Yeah.
So who's running their race team? It was one of the very few. Like Red Bull. Now, Red Bull is essentially an energy drink, but it's been, the whole team is branded as the Red Bull team. It's the Red Bull cars.
Yeah,
the Red Bull,
and the clothing design of Red Bull.
Exactly, and then
and Alpine,
it's exactly the same thing that they did with Benetton. It was the Benetton team, but I mean, Benetton is a clothing company, a fashion company.
Yeah, what I'm getting to as far as is mostly from the engine suppliers and where the team was based, but. Yeah, and to go back to the McLaren thing, I feel like Ricardo going to McLaren will be just fine. They're on par. Sure, right now Ricardo was putting Renault with much better results than Sainz and Norris as of late, but I don't see Ricardo skipping a beat next year. I think they'll be just fine. As long as
I think him and Lando Norris will work very well together. I think Lando Norris can really use the mentoring of a guy who really knows how to win races. You know, not that Carlos Sainz is a bad teammate for him, but Danny just brings more to the table, I believe.
Yeah, he's been there a couple more years longer than him, so he is essentially a long-term veteran by today's Formula One standards.
Right. So let's talk about Alex Albon, because he's been in the news a bit lately. Because you had alluded to it earlier that only one Red Bull has a chance to win. Now, the name that keeps coming up is Hülkenberg, of course, and even Max Verstappen, and then Max's pops, Jos Verstappen, and both kind of shared a sentiment that they like the idea of having Hülkenberg in there as a teammate. Now, we've already seen that Gasly has been signed to AlphaTauri, so his shot to move back up into the Red Bull seat is not going to happen right now for sure. But Richard, what do you think of the odds that whole Hülkenberg deal goes through? Because the Hulk certainly has been impressive in his few fill-in roles.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, the main purpose is to win constructor championships for these teams. It's not to go out and win drivers' championships as much as they value them. So I think that you need two drivers that will consistently score points and get podiums, and this last weekend was a prime example. Mercedes have two cars up there, Red Bull have one. Red Bull make a strategy call, Mercedes will cover that all day long. So yeah, it's a little bit, they desperately need somebody out there. And I think that of all the people, there's basically three drivers there. There's Perez, Hülkenberg, and Albon. And I would personally say that I think that Hülkenberg would probably be your best bet at scoring consistent long-term point hauls compared to the other two drivers. I just, as much as I like Albon, he comes across really, really well in all of the interviews that he does, and he's great with the media, and he's great with the sponsors and everything. It's just, I hate to say it, the guy's just not getting it done.
No, he's not, and I think we can all agree on that, as well as
time and time
as well as the media can agree with it and the fan base. So, but what about the two guys that have been released from Haas? You're talking about Grosjean and Magnussen. Do those guys have any shot at all at any team in F1? Because there's some some stories that Grosjean has been talking to a few IndyCar teams. He said he would have talked sooner, but he didn't realize there were only 3 ovals on the schedule. He goes, there's only 3. That might not be too bad.
do the Johnston approach, and whoever wants him can put an oval specialist on there. And then I heard the same thing about Magnussen, because I know I've heard it's either going to be IndyCar or sports cars between one or both drivers.
I think Magnussen is a better fit for IndyCar than Grosjean. I really don't see anybody looking at Grosjean unless he brings like a pile of money, in which Dale Coyne will be first. Exactly. Yeah, if he brings a pile of money, and when I say a pile of money, $3 or $4 million, not kind of any kind of Formula One commitment. Dale Coyne will be the first in line to say, "Hey, let's talk."
They have that vacated seat now with Palou going to Ganassi, so that could open up. Look, even though this was before he joined Haas as a reserve driver, Pietro Fittipaldi drove for Coyne, so maybe
Fittipaldi is rumored to be at AJ Foyt next year.
Well, that changes everything.
Even on a part-time basis. I don't think he's rumored for a full season.
No, I'm not talking about.
But Pietro Fittipaldi's name is in the mix for a Foyt ride. Yeah. That's
Yeah,
I heard
basically,
that very recently from a reliable source.
Yeah, for the lack of better terms, or Haas is cleaning house, not just from the drivers, but maybe also the reserve department. But in fairness, Pietro getting a ride wherever it's Formula One or IndyCar is probably for the best, because there's so much that a reserve driver can't do before people realize, is this driver ever going to get the opportunity? Because I feel like that spot injury robbed us a potential Indy 500. I would still like to see him in the Indianapolis 500 to make up the one he lost 2 years ago. But yeah, it'd be interesting for sure. I feel like between the two, yeah, Magnussen is the one I feel like be more fit to IndyCar's competition compared to Grosjean. And as far
Yeah, and
as
his dad raced him IndyCar too.
yeah,
Yeah,
that
so.
was an interesting time period.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
All right, but Haas is looking like we're going to sign Mick Schumacher and Richard. What's the other name I heard? I can't remember. It's not Ilon. It's
Mazepin.
Mazepin. Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So that would give
And
them two
A lot
rookie
of money in
drivers.
that, yeah.
And
A lot
as
of
far
money
as
coming there.
and as far as AlphaTauri, Tsunoda got his first test in an AlphaTauri. Whether or not that means it's a good sign that he'll probably be Gasly's teammate as time will tell. Because, albeit, let's give him let's make this disclaimer. AlphaTauri did phenomenal in Imola. Even Kvyat, when Gasly fell, Kvyat picked up the pieces and had a phenomenal run. But I feel like we're at the point it's too little, too late for Kvyat.
Yeah, I think it is. Yeah, I think he's had his opportunity, and I mean, I'm not saying he wouldn't do well at another team. You're not saying, for example, he wouldn't do well at Haas, but I can't think there's many American sports teams lining up a Russian driver right now.
No. He may end up in WEC or something like that. Yeah.
So safe to say
he's obviously
that
good
test
enough
with
driver.
Tsunoda could be a sign for maybe him going there next year. You feel that way? Or are we going to wait?
Yeah, for sure. I think Tsunoda will be at AlphaTauri next year. Yeah, without a doubt.
That's how I
And
took
the
that.
fact they've announced Gasly but not Kvyat basically makes it pretty obvious.
Yeah.
Excuse me, that Kvyat isn't going to be there. So,
but nonetheless, it was a strong performance for Kvyat and AlphaTauri, albeit they did have a little bit of an advantage because they did test it at Imola before the season began.
Yeah.
Now Tsunoda, is he a Honda factory driver? Is he a Honda backed guy?
Yeah.
So
because
we still got another year in a Honda contract. So that that certainly helps out. So all right, but yeah, he had his first test and he was blown away. He had some interesting comments to the media about how fun it was and how difficult it was to drive a Formula One car. So. We wish him the best. So we've only got a couple of minutes left. But guys, we got anything else to talk about? Next 3 minutes.
We got the ARCA West Championship on the line as well, also in Phoenix. I said this a while back that if Fox was not involved in the Truck Series program, NBC should go with this big quadruple championship weekend like ESPN used to do with Cup, Busch, and ARCA at Atlanta. All the races were on one network. Obviously, with trucks being on Fox, that's not going to happen. But the ARCA West titles could have boiled down to Jesse Love Jr. and Blaine Perkins. It is a fairly tight battle with 27 cars. The championship is not over quite yet. But whether or not, I feel like Jesse will get the job done for the Bill McAnally racing team. But I think for the race, you have Ty Gibbs, Sam Mayer, a couple of East guys in the mix. I think the race is going to come down to those boys down the East. And I think it'll be a good send-off victory for Mayer if he were to win for GMS. Because remember, Mayer is going to be driving for JRM next year. And that GMS ride that Sam Mayer's in right now, the 21 car, is going to go to Jack Wood out of California. Jack Wood is an interesting choice considering he's from the Southwest Tour and he's done fairly well as an independent racing with Velocity Racing. So that is kind of like the big news out on the regionals that I'd like to bring up and share to you guys. That's all.
That's all right. Okay. So now, Richard, are we have a week off in Formula One? Or are we racing again?
I think we've got a week off, haven't we, before we go to Turkey, which should be another good track
So
to go back to in turn 8. And
turn 8, yep.
Perhaps Hamilton locking up the
hopefully
championship.
yeah, hopefully they've cleared all the cars off the track because it's been used as a car dealership for the last 10 years. That place, unfortunately.
Oh, jeez. But yeah, we'll see if we'll be talking about Hamilton locking up a 7th championship, much like this past Sunday was Mercedes' 7th straight title.
I expect you will. Yeah. I mean,
Any scenario that sees Lewis winning the title involves a lot of moving parts, and so
yeah.
We're down to what, 3 races left?
We got 4.
4?
We got, Turkey, 2 in Bahrain, and 1 in Abu Dhabi.
All right, so there we go.
And with Bahrain, we'll finally crown a Formula 2 champion. Good grief, it's been forever since we had him.
It's been strange that the Formula 2 haven't raced at a lot of these tracks in Europe that Formula 1 has, but obviously that's their calendar, and that they've run to a different budget to the Formula 1 guys, so it's makes it a little bit interesting.
They stuck with the abbreviated schedule, but when that time comes, we'll certainly talk about that F2 title, Tracy, because
they're doing both Bahrain races, aren't they? F2.
I think.
They're doing the Bahrain one, which is on the classic in quotation marks classic Bahrain track, and then there's the outer track, which people are naively calling the oval, but the outer loop of Bahrain, which is the second race of the double header. And I think Formula 2 are running both tracks, or both weekends, sorry. So there's 4 races to go in total. So, Mick Schumacher's got a little bit of work to do to clinch the championship, but hopefully he's been able to do that, with this time away.
Yeah.
All right, so we are out of time. So, Louise, thank you. Richard, thank you. I want to thank the Whoobazoo Radio Network. I want to thank iHeartRadio, Spreaker, and Google Podcasts. I want to thank you folks who listen to us every week. But until next week, good night.
WHOOBAZOO, that's Whoobazoo.com.
Enter website, enter website, enter website, enter website.